Hey, I'm Anya, realtor with Bosley Real Estate and host of Who's in My House, the Toronto Real Estate podcast with expert perspectives and honest conversations. All right, let's see who's in my house today.
Hello.
And can you tell us who you are?
Sure. My name is Chris Chu, and I'm a real estate lawyer here in Toronto.
Which is very exciting because you are the first non-realtor I've had on so far.
What a privilege. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Can you tell me a little bit about why you got into law in the first place, and then also specifically why real estate law?
Sure. So to be very frank, I was thinking about, different career paths, and I realized that I was terrible at math and really good at writing and reading. So I looked at different careers, took a law course, and kind of fell into it. And that's kind of like the trajectory that I've always kind of saw myself going towards. And I went to law school and did the whole thing.
So it was in high school that you were kind of like, being a lawyer seems like it'll fit for me. And when you went to law school, was there anything how did you get into real estate law? Because that's not I feel like most lawyers will go into litigation or something.
So that's a good question. I actually started in litigation.
Okay.
I articled at a defense boutique here in Toronto, and then after about a year and a half.
Criminal litigation is what you started with. Okay.
Yeah. And then after about a year and a half, 2 years, it wasn't really my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot in terms of how to appear before different judges, and different kind of, people in the court.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to do something more on the solicitor side. So that's not attending court, a lot more paperwork, a lot more transactional and advisory. And I kind of got into real estate by just really, when you start your own practice, I call it door law. So it's basically whatever comes through your door, you're doing that kind of law, right? And you're learning as you go.
Oh, interesting.
And
so you left litigation and you right from there started your own private practice.
So I had a couple of months contract where I
Okay.
was working at different firms.
Okay.
I learned quite a bit in terms of the solicitor side of stuff. And I also learned a lot of the basic solicitor practice from just law school practical courses and really kind of meeting different lawyers. So you kind of understand the general basic
Right.
building blocks. And then it just so happened that over time I was doing a lot more real estate transactions, and I was, getting a pretty good reputation with it. I was meeting a lot of really good realtors, and that's kind of a large part of my practice now.
Good realtors.
Yeah.
The internet will not appreciate that. Okay, so you it was never really necessarily, you were like, I want to be a real estate lawyer. It just kind of happened.
Yep.
And is what do you like about it?
I like the fact that I actually get to speak to clients on a very personal level.
Yeah.
I think that it's different for every lawyer and it's different for every practice, right? But generally speaking, with real estate, especially the clients that I deal with, there are a lot of first-time home buyers, young professionals, people that, they're not looking at real estate as just a money-making scheme. Right?
Yeah.
They're not looking at it as I can sell this in X amount of years and make a ton of money.
Yeah.
They're looking at it as this is a place that I want to have a family, or I want to build,
Right.
a set of a structure. So that's kind of really what I appreciate.
So I guess rather than being B2B and dealing with companies and corporate where it's mostly just about money, you're dealing with you're being involved in part of a story.
Yeah. And, to be honest, I work with you quite extensively.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be another thing that I wanted to talk about was obviously we work together a lot, and we also work with a mortgage broker, and we like to call ourselves the dream team.
Yep.
And so I've gotten to know how you deal with clients a lot, and I've also worked with other real estate lawyers, not necessarily if clients come and they have their own and I end up dealing with them. So I kind of get to see the differences. And one thing that I really like about you is that you take a very client forward approach that I don't see very often with real estate lawyers.
Thank you.
I recently had a client buy a condo, and they had their own lawyer, And when we did the status certificate review, there was no phone call to discuss. There was nothing.
Yep.
All they did was they sent a report in a PDF with the findings. There was no opinions. There was no this is what we need to look out for and why. And they just sent it to the client. The client was like, I don't even know what I'm reading. So then and they had asked me several times to explain the status to them. And I was like, listen, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's that like legally, I am not qualified to review this.
Yep.
I can tell you if there's like a red flag, maybe I see there's a lawsuit and I can point that out. But like in terms of explaining to you whether or not this is a good status, I can't do that. Yep. And what I really liked about you, the first time I ever worked with you was in 2021.
Has it been that? Yeah.
It was 2021. I remember because I had a client who wanted to buy a condo, and I don't remember if there was an offer night or if it was just because it was the weekend, but we really wanted an advantage and we wanted to put in an offer over the weekend, and we wanted to have the status reviewed so that no one would be able to compete with us, because obviously 2021 was insanity. And I think my client may have had a lawyer they were thinking about working with, but that lawyer was non-responsive, and we needed the status reviewed that night, and it was like a Saturday. And so I asked Michelle, who's a realtor and a friend of ours, if she knew anyone that would be able to do that. And she sent me your contact, and you reviewed the status that night. You called me to go over it with me before you even called the client, which I'd never had before.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that because I was in the loop. And what I find with every other real estate transaction, at least like 90% of the time when I'm not working with you, I am not in the loop. Yeah. No, the lawyer does not tell me anything. I don't know when things are being done. Whereas what I like about you is that you communicate to me what's going on, so that if the client's not sure or has questions, then I'm also there as a support, and I'm not like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. It's actually interesting you say that, because there's a couple of things. Like the law society is really clear about the fact that, like, technically speaking, I had to let the client know about what I'm going to, discuss, right? Mm-hmm. And they had to kind of authorize to say yes to what I disclosed with you.
Sure.
But in a lot of cases, what I do is that I loop in everybody, because you're the main person on the ground dealing with the transaction. And I always tell the client, look, I tell the agent exactly what I tell you, so that you understand what the legal areas are, but there's an on the ground practical level, because I'm not there looking at the place, right?
For sure.
I can tell you what it says on paper, but I don't know what it actually looks like, what it feels like to be inside.
Exactly. And also, there are certain things, like maybe you find a point of concern in a status certificate for a condo, but the client doesn't necessarily know how that might impact the resale value. And then that's what they would want to come back to me for.
100%.
And so there's a lot, like, I kind of feel like the realtor's role in the transaction is almost like a project manager. Like you hit the we deal with the client, and then we kind of should be like the liaison between all of the other professionals. So like helping contact the mortgage broker and helping contact the lawyer. And, you can tell me maybe a little bit about your experience with this, but I find that whenever there isn't a good relationship or a relationship between the lawyer, the realtor, mortgage broker, mortgage advisor, sometimes information gets missed because everyone's communicating directly to the client. The client is in the midst of a very high value transaction, the biggest purchase or sale they'll probably ever do. And they are thinking about a billion other things. They don't even know what they should be thinking about or what they need to be communicating to other people. So when the point of contact with the project manager is the client, then it just adds stress to their plate and creates a possibility for problems.
That's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I want to add to that too, is that especially for when I started.
Mm-hmm.
So within the first couple of years that I was doing real estate law, I went to a couple of lawyer seminars that were hosted. And, this is before the pandemic, obviously. So people were in conferences a lot more. And I went in groups and with people, and there was a buffet that you could eat at, and people were still coughing into it.
Yeah.
It's not. But I remember going in there, and a lot of now it's changed dramatically, I think, from the time that I started till now, right? There's a lot more young lawyers
Yep.
coming into the practice. But I noticed that there were a lot of older lawyers or more seasoned ones. And they were everyone there was just complaining. They were complaining how realtors were making more money than they were, and mortgage brokers are making more money, and how, they fair. I
Yeah.
understand all this. But the number one thing that I had seen across the board with these professionals, like the number one complaint was that they don't like to talk to their clients, which I kind of felt like that's kind of stupid. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, that's your job. Like,
Yeah,
you're
what are you doing
to,
in a client-facing
yeah,
role
like,
if
go
you
to the
don't?
back office.
Yeah,
like, I
totally.
don't, there's
Yeah.
there's lawyers that just do that. They
Yep.
never speak to a client.
Yep.
Only when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that old kind of sentiment of being a professional has taken over their sense of like client care.
Okay.
And that's a number one thing that a lot of law schools don't train you to do client care.
Yeah.
Right? That's a thing that they teach you in the bar exam very briefly, and also when you're practicing as a lawyer
Right.
in whatever kind of law firm or
Yeah.
corporation that you're at. So that's one thing that I really wanted to know is what was the missing link that a lot of people have complaints about? Like lawyers, I mean, look, people don't like lawyers. That's like a common trope across like cartoons, TV shows.
I know. I think
like the internet.
I think
like,
you and I might be the two most hated professions.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
in Toronto specifically, I think realtors may take the cake for more hated than lawyers.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Well, I have good experiences with the realtors I work with, like you, but that's because I'm also picky and smart.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't mean like with like one-on-one. I mean in terms of like public sentiment. Like when so I don't know if you know this, but when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer. Like I've always wanted to. That was like my dream job from when I was like quite young. And when I was in high school, I took law classes and I did co-op at a real estate law office when I was 16, and I like learned all of this stuff. And I remember my parents' friends would always be like, "Oh, you don't want to be a lawyer. Everyone hates lawyers." And I was like, "I don't care. I like to argue. I don't want to like you often say you're kind of scared of me."
I am. Kind of is.
I'm very nice.
She is very nice. She is.
But I will I will stand up for what I believe in. And so like if it's a client, I will fight for them.
I believe the term is stern. You're stern.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
stern. Yeah, see.
Yeah, sure.
You're right.
But I've had that since I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, I loved arguing and I loved like all of that. So that was why being a lawyer felt very natural.
Mm-hmm.
And I got all that experience working in the real estate law office. And when I was there, I never really witnessed much client facing stuff because my role was technically like a legal assistant. So most of it was just like files. Like I would just like do all the filing. But back then closings were picking up the keys at the office. Yeah. It wasn't a lockbox. So I would deal with clients when they came to pick up the keys. But at that time, I like didn't understand what was happening.
Yep.
But I did all that because I wanted to go into corporate law. And then I graduated high school. I went to Ryerson specifically for the business law program because I wanted to get into corporate law. And like I had this whole like 10-year plan. I was like, I'm going to do a joint MBA JD. Like this is my 10-year plan. And when I got to university, I was like, I hate school.
Yeah.
And I hate reading. And these sound like terrible traits for someone who wants to go into law school.
Yes and no.
I mean, there's a lot of school and a lot of reading.
There's a lot of school and a lot of reading, but I also, we can have this is a whole separate topic in and of itself. But I think that that's the number one common thing that I see for a lot of people that want to go into a career in law is that they have this 10-year plan, but it's so inflexible that when something hits that kind of, view, it shatters everything. But
and
the whole point is that you're supposed to be flexible with it. And they like some people end up in tax law. Like I didn't expect I was going to end up in real estate and, doing wills and estates and corporate stuff. Like, it just happens. Yeah. Right.
But that was like, I mean, there were also lots of other factors at play. Like I was a high performance athlete. I was training all the time and it seemed like it was going to take me so long to finish school, and then the thought of like having to continue school, and I really just wanted to be independent and working.
Yep.
So I got my license when I was in second year, or maybe third year, and then I started working while I was in school because I just couldn't do it. I do every once in a while think about like maybe one day in the future I would do law school, and I did finish university, so I could, but that was like, anyways, that was my segue. So now you can go back to what you were talking about.
What was I talking about? Oh yeah. So
what were we talking about?
Lawyers and how I
lawyers,
started. Yes.
clients, how they
Lawyers
don't like
and
clients.
Yeah. So that was the number. Like, obviously not everyone at that conference, hated or didn't like talking to their clients.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like a general complaint. Now I can kind of see where they're coming from if, the clients are being unreasonable, they're asking them too many questions. But at the same time, like, this shouldn't be something that I can pick up on that easily. Yeah. Right? So when I started kind of, building a client base from scratch. You have to cold call a lot of people or rely on the network that you already have of friends and things like that. And I actually just called up a realtor that I thought was fairly reputable, who is, by the way. And, I asked them, I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to get your business, but like, what's the number one complaint that you see across the board when you have a real estate lawyer that you're dealing with? And that right away, they're like, doesn't pick up the calls.
Yep.
And, they were like, look, I'm not trying to be unreasonable. 12 to 24 hours is a reasonable response time.
Yep.
Not keeping me in the loop and fighting back with their client without kind of giving me a reason as to why, right? Because then you're not in the loop. Now, the other side of it that I've also dealt with is that, very much to your point of a project manager for a realtor, there's some realtors that just don't care. Like, right after they sign the offer, everything's like,
they're out.
Yeah,
they're
like, not my problem. Cool.
I'm done.
Yeah, I cannot stand that. Or they're like project managers for things that they know that they should be responsible for. Okay. For example, they're like, oh, make sure that the client checks all the appliances. I'm like, I'm not the realtor. I'm not the one like going in there and inspecting like the appliances with them. Or like, make sure that they close on the closing day. I'm like, yeah, thanks. Like, no shit. Like, right?
Well, and like, to your point, I mean, a lot of lawyers don't tell me when we've closed. You do every time.
Yeah.
But like, so I had a crazy story, which can kind of bring us into our next topic, of like things that you should absolutely never do, which is closing on the
moving in on the same day as
moving in on the same day as you've closed, God. And closing on a purchase and a sale on the same day.
Oh, yes.
Both, never. Never.
Just you saying this gets me like my blood boiling. Okay, because I have stories about agents doing things on those days that drive me absolutely insane. Okay,
so this happened last week.
Yep.
I had a client who sold a property out of town and purchased a condo here, and was using whatever lawyer they've used over the years. When they were, and this is also one of the struggles of when you have two agents for each side of the transaction, because again, there's information that gets lost. And there were a lot of things throughout this transaction where I could tell the client was confused about. They were under the impression that their property was still conditional, even though it was a condition subsequent. So it's just like, they have to do this before closing. Yep. And I was like, no, the buyers aren't going to back out. Like, you just need to complete this task. Yeah. So anyways.
What was it, if you don't mind me asking? What was the condition?
It was, so the seller had to do a septic tank, like clean out and maintenance. Okay. Prior to closing.
Reasonable.
And then like show the buyers that it was done in a professional workmanship like manner, or whatever that.
Got to clean the pooper.
Correct. Yeah, because it was a rural property. And so they called me and were like, oh my God, Anya, I just realized like because we were at this point conditional on the condo purchase. And they were like, we need to extend the conditional period because I just realized I'm conditional on my house still. And I was like, what are you talking about? You told me you firmed up last week. And they were like, no, I just like, my agent just told me that there's a septic thing and I'm doing it on Monday, and then the buyers want to be there, and I don't know. And I was like, okay, I need you to send me the clause that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Does it say offer is conditional upon? And they were like, I think so. And I was like, send it to me right now. So they sent it to me. I read it, and it was absolutely not that. It was just a term of the agreement. And so I called them back. I explained this. I was like, take a deep breath. That's okay. It is not conditional. You just have to, this is a term of the contract.
Yeah.
You have to do it, and that's that. So there were like points of confusion, but also they had mentioned to me that the closing was likely to be moved up to June 23rd on the sale, and they wanted to close on the condo on the 26th.
Okay.
So I was like, no problem. We will close on the 26th. I did not find out until the Sunday prior to closing, so 4 or 5 days prior to closing, that is not what happened, and the closing was on the same day. And and the client was planning on moving on the same day. And I looked at them dead in the eye, and I said, absolutely not. You cannot do this. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, listen, when you close on the sale, you are relying on the buyer and the buyer's lawyer to get it together early enough so that you then have time for you to close on your purchase, because obviously you need the funds from the sale for the purchase. And I was like, you need to call your lawyer and you need to flag this to them immediately, because if they don't have it at top of mind, you might slip through the cracks.
Yeah,
like, I don't know how big of a law firm it is. Who knows? So it's like, you need to call your lawyer first thing tomorrow morning and be like, this is what's happening. We need to make sure that it's done well. And I was like, as for moving, because they were doing it themselves with a U-Haul, I was like, listen, you will not be allowed inside of that unit guaranteed until like after 5. So don't plan on moving before 5. You really shouldn't move that night, period. But if you have to, it is what it is. So closing day comes. I send my client a message saying, hey, I hope everything goes smoothly. Keep me posted. This lawyer has not communicated with me whatsoever. I've never once spoken to them. So I'm not relying on them to provide me with information.
Yep.
At 8 o'clock, I haven't heard anything from anyone. So I messaged the client. I said, hey, hope everything went well. Let me know what happened. 10 minutes later, I get a text from Jacob, who's a mortgage broker that we both work with. And Jacob was working with the client. And he goes, hey, I don't know if anyone's updated you, but I thought I'd keep you in the loop. As of 5:10, the lawyers were still waiting on the funds from the buyer.
Oh, God.
5:10, we're still waiting on the funds from the buyer. So I don't think that it closed. He was like, the funds from the bank are there. They're ready. But like, I don't.
Yeah, they don't have the rest of the, like,
they don't have the rest of it. And I was like, what do you mean? So I wait for my client to reply. I messaged the lawyer. I emailed the lawyer's office. I was like, can someone tell me what happened today? Because I've just been informed that there's a chance it didn't close. Then the lawyer's office sends me this email about, again, saying you should never close on the same day, blah, 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 blah.
So they sent that after they were supposed to take it. They were supposed to. The day of. Okay.
But they didn't flag it to the client.
Yep.
I didn't have the other APS. So I was going based off the information I was given.
Yep.
But at no point was it flagged. And another caveat to this is it wasn't until the Monday, 3 days before closing, that my client's lawyer asked me for the seller's lawyer info.
What?
To which I replied, did you do the title search that was due 10 days ago? And they never replied. I truly don't believe that they did the title search. Because, as you know, you can call my office to get the seller's lawyer info. If they didn't have it and were asking me the week of closing, there's no chance they did the title search.
So, okay. I think that there's a couple of things I have major question is, do you think that the clients themselves just were shopping around for lawyers and just didn't get a lawyer on time?
No, because we were conditional on status. So
yeah,
they
but you can get a lawyer to look at status.
It was the same lawyer.
Oh.
It was the same lawyer. It's possible that they didn't retain the lawyer in time, but I don't know.
So that's actually something that has happened earlier in my career, where a client will say, hey, like, we're looking for a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. I'll give them a quote. And then they'll say, okay, we'll get back to you. Weeks go by, like, I'm not going to chase you to consider going with me. Like, it's not, I'm not a salesy guy in that way. And I don't think that it's just not my style. And then, they'll come back and say, hey, yeah, we want to retain you. And I'll look at the title search date is, a week past, let's say. And I'm like, well, you need to get this amended.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go on the record for this, because if I do, puts my practice at risk.
Yeah, because it's past the date.
It's past the date.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I can't do anything with it. Your realtor can probably help you. And then they say, oh, well, yeah, maybe we'll try. And then it's like this whole song and dance. Now, generally the rule of thumb is that it's more of a convention than anything else. But if you're the lawyer on the other side, you should be kind of reasonable and say, look, if it's if it's closing in a month, like, sure, move the title search date up, right? It's not going to hurt anybody. Yep. Right? If you really want to be an ass, then sure, you can, limit it, right? But it's still a risk that you don't want to take.
Yep.
Right? So not to give the benefit of the doubt to the lawyer as well. I think that it's a possibility they shopped around. But again,
it could be anything. It's possible that the client hadn't retained them in time. Who knows what happened? But regardless, like, if it were you and you had already done the status for the client and received a copy of the APS, you typically would call me and be like, hey, Chris's title search date is coming up and they haven't contacted me or like retained me. Can you like find out what's going on? And even I will also, like, I flagged it to the clients that I had sent you last week because their title search date was coming up in 2 weeks. I was like, you haven't picked a lawyer. You need to pick a lawyer now. To finish my story, and then we will dive into all the things that went wrong.
Sure.
So they were closing on the sale of their house and the purchase of their condo on the same day.
Yep.
It did not close because this is a chain of 5 closings that went wrong. The buyer of their house was also closing on the sale of their property and the purchase on the same day. And then the buyer of the buyer's house couldn't get the funds in time. So the first buyer couldn't get the funds in time, messed up that closing, then messed up the purchase, then messed up the sale, and then another purchase. 5 closings. It's
the wonderful world of real estate.
If you like what you've seen so far, don't forget to hit subscribe and check out my other socials.
I have a story for you about same-day closings and selling to buy.
Okay.
So really quickly, I had a client who was selling their place and buying on the same day. Now, already that's, like you said, that's like a no-no, right? But they were also moving in on the same day as their purchase, which, again, there's reasons for that. We can kind of go over that later.
Yeah, there are circumstances, like, generally we try to avoid it, but there are, like, sometimes it's just that's the situation and we have to deal with it.
They had flexibility, by the way. So they could have, done the sale first or done the purchase first with like a day in between. They had finances, everything lined up. They just wanted to move in the same day that they sold their place and bought on the same day and move in.
Okay.
And they wanted it done before like 2, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
And that's not dependent on us. That's
dependent on when the buyer has the funds.
Yeah, for your sale, and also if you're getting a mortgage in this case, which they were, it's dependent on when the lender gets the money, and it's dependent on when I give that money to the seller's lawyer when they are able to process the transaction. Again, we can go over all that stuff later, right? But they were insistent on this. And I was like, okay, now for the property that they were purchasing, there was an existing tenant in that property.
Okay.
And the condition was that they had served the notices already. The tenant agreed to move out, and they were just moving their stuff out on the same day. And everyone was aware of this, that the tenant was going to move out
the day of closing
and would have everything done by noon. So think about this. You're selling your place to buy a place and move in on that same day.
When you also know that someone is moving out that same day, that's nuts.
It's insane. And this is a condo, by the way. So you have to book the elevator.
Yeah.
It's downtown. It's in the middle of downtown on like in rush hour, right?
Oh my god.
Nothing about this is easy in terms of logistics.
Yes.
So then, the realtor even was like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry. We got this. I'm like,
do you?
I'm like, I'm not really sure about this. But the clients were also kind of like a little bit picky about things, right? They were really insistent. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
First of all, I told them not to book a mover until after 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Just to be on the safe side. If you want to move in, You want to give the possible tenant some time to leave. And you also want to make sure that if you're not getting the funds in before, 3 or 4, that you're not paying for a moving van to be sitting in a busy downtown Toronto street for hours doing nothing, right? They didn't listen. I got a call at 2. When are the keys ready? When are the keys ready? Call at 3. When are the keys ready? We've got the mover. And you could hear the mover yelling in the back, like, because they're, even though they're getting paid, they're just sitting there taking up space.
They don't want to be sitting there.
In an alleyway, like, people are getting upset with you, right? Finally, we get the key, like, it closes the deal. I'm like, okay, thank God. Like, it's over.
What time is this?
It's like
4?
4:30.
Okay.
Right? So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
They were waiting outside, obviously, and they're complaining, like, why are we paying for this mover? I'm like, I told you not to do this.
Literally said don't do it.
I told you not to do this, right? You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Like, it's not my fault. Again, fine. I get a call again. So the tenant hasn't moved out. And I'm like, I mean, I told you this, but no. And I was like, well, how bad is it? And like, well, we walked in and the tenant's sleeping in the middle of an empty condo on the sofa. So it's just, they walked in apparently and just a tenant is sleeping on a sofa in the middle of the living room.
So everything was empty, but like everything was gone but the sofa.
And the storage. Which is like a considerable amount of stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, this is exactly the reason why, like, people shouldn't move in on the same day as closing and also sell and buy on the same day. Like,
yeah,
it's a nightmare.
And the problem too is that there's so many factors that are not in your control because there are other parties.
Yep.
That it's just like they can pile up and create a ripple effect that can delay closings, or like it's more complicated than it needs to be. Either close a day early on your sale and put your stuff in a truck and have it stored overnight and stay in a hotel or with family, or, close the following day, get a bridge loan for one day. Like it doesn't have to be that complicated. Yep. Okay. So another thing I wanted to talk about is you and I work with a lot of first-time buyers. We've done a few first-time buyer seminars.
Yeah.
So I thought we could just like go over some of the things that we really need first-time buyers to know.
Okay. Yeah.
When they are buying.
Do you want me to start?
You start with your favorite. Number 1.
I guess the first thing we already talked about is don't move in on the day of closing.
Okay.
And number 2 is don't expect to get the keys until about 5:30 to 6 p.m. For most people that aren't aware of this, the registry for Ontario, when you register your deed, it's up until 5 p.m. So it's 9 to 5. That means that if you get the funds later at 6 or 7, you have to register the next business day.
Yeah.
Right? It's not open on the weekends, not open on holidays. So if that does happen, there's something called exchanging keys in escrow, where you can basically get the keys with a promise of, closing the next day. Right. But again, don't move in on the same day as closing.
But so closing, like getting the keys in escrow, when you say escrow in Canada is not the same as what it is in the States, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Because that is, like, I don't think I could ever sell real estate in the States because I still don't understand what their escrow situation is.
Yeah. I mean, the U.S. is
it's a different animal. We won't even get into it. But yes, escrow, that is mostly predominantly an American term, and like very rarely do we actually need to close an escrow. Okay. For me, definitely like reviewing the status certificate is a huge one. If you're buying a condo, if you're buying a house, then there has to be a home inspection, whether the home inspection is done preemptively, if there is an offer night and you are hoping to go in with no conditions, or you go in with a condition on home inspection. But like those are 2 conditions or things that need to be done if you are buying either a condo or a house.
Yep.
Another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't know, and also most agents don't know how to explain, is title search.
Yes.
To anyone who like might be buying a property, can you explain what the title search is and why it's so important?
So a lawyer's one of the key responsibilities that a lawyer has is to conduct a title search and report on title. Now, what that means is we search up things called encumbrances on title. What that basically means is any kind of things that would impact negatively on your use and ownership of the property.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be mortgages, liens, which are debts,
Okay.
which are different from mortgages. And there's a finite difference on that. Any kind of restrictive covenants. So basically like any kind of conditions or promises to restrict the use of the property in some way.
So a big one that we're seeing a lot now is Metrolinx.
Yep.
Metrolinx sneaking themselves onto title and essentially giving themselves the right to purchase your property if they decide that it's needed for transit land.
Yep. It's the government, so
Yeah, well,
it's
yes.
like that's the thing. It's hard to argue against those things, but the problem is that the saving benefit in my view on this is that if they're purchasing just one house or one property,
mm-hmm.
you really have to have some bad luck to be doing that. It's usually like a whole swath of property, right?
Yeah.
But again, that is a concern, and very similar to that is easements.
Mm-hmm.
So those are rights of way that are granted on your property. Very typical easements that you can't really avoid are,
mm-hmm.
for example, hydro and utility companies running wires or piping underneath your property because they need those pipes to service the rest of the neighborhood.
Or even like the cables being hung above.
Yep.
And like Bell, Rogers have that too, right?
Exactly. Which are very common for condo buildings. So some condo buildings have an exclusive contract or an easement where, telecoms companies like Rogers or Bell can run their wiring exclusively in that whole condo.
Yep.
And the downside of that is that they are locked in, the residents are locked into a contract to use Rogers or Bell for 5 years.
Though often it's at a significantly discounted rate.
Yeah, but again, if you don't like Rogers or Bell,
if you don't want,
right? Like you were very picky about using that.
Yep.
It's not great. So that's something just to kind of be aware of if you're buying a condo, is that to look at that as a part of it. But yeah.
So you do the title search, and title search is usually done like at least 2 weeks before closing.
So
right?
it's done. The standard that people usually have is that it's done 2 weeks prior to closing. But it's actually, when you look at
there's a whole system, right?
Yeah, there's a whole system of it, but essentially there's a title search date.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the requisition date
mm-hmm.
for lawyers. And essentially that's like the due date that we have to conduct all the searches and then send all these inquiries to the seller's lawyer and say, hey, we've searched up all these issues. Can you tell us about these things?
Yeah.
Or please fix these things.
Yeah. So it'll be like
debts on there.
Like this mortgage needs to be discharged. What's the deal with this lien and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Are there any factors in which when a title search is conducted, a buyer could potentially be let out of the deal?
Yeah. There are certain things, like for example, if there's more than one mortgage that can't be paid out, for example. Or
right. Like they've over leveraged.
Yeah, they've over leveraged.
Like say the property sold for $1 million and there's $1.2 million in debt on the property.
Correct.
Okay.
Or if a very common one, I would say this, it's not as common as people think that you can't close a deal, right? For the most part, buyers and sellers, they want to work together,
mm-hmm.
whether or not it's a confrontational one, which hopefully it's not. But for the most part, people want to just get their money or get their property.
They want to get out.
But a very common one that you see is like if there is a pending litigation. So let's say, for example, the seller is being, has they're defendant in something that involves their personal property,
mm-hmm.
or they're in a legal dispute of some sort. That third party can register a certificate of pending litigation. So that basically prevents them from selling the property or using it without the third party saying yes to it.
I see. Okay.
It's not necessarily a lien. It's that they're still, going through a court action.
Yep.
It's more common in like family law situations.
Yeah, if it's a divorce or something.
If it's a divorce or anything like that. But if you're the agent for the seller, you should know that ahead of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you should do a title search or kind of ask those questions. But sometimes you don't know about that.
Well, that almost goes into the conversation about the differences in roles between realtors and lawyers, because I think to the public or someone who's, a buyer or a seller who doesn't know, like they don't know what my job is versus your job.
Mm-hmm.
And title search typically is done by the lawyer, but
mm-hmm.
I think it's actually really important for realtors to do their own, to pull title you know, if it's a listing before they list, because you want to know if there's anything that could cause your client problems in the future. And you and I recently dealt with this with a client of ours that was purchasing a property that was very close to an Ontario line, a future Ontario line station. And I was trying to figure out if this property would be impacted and if Metrolinx was on title. And so I pulled it. And I mean, it's like $40. Like, it's not a big deal. It's something that we should be doing to protect our clients. But again, like, I'm not necessarily qualified to read everything, but at least I can see it. And then I can call you and be like, hey, is this thing concerning? And then you can kind of guide me on what we need to discuss, or you would talk to the client. But yeah, like, the agent's role is predominantly until the acquisition of the property. Like, we assist with like finding the property, doing all the market research, doing all the due diligence. And then once the property is purchased, a lot of the burden shifts onto both the lawyer and the mortgage broker. And our role is smaller, but not.
It doesn't end.
It does not end.
It does not end.
Because
like,
we're the project managers.
Thank you.
And one thing that is so important that I tell every single client, and I know you do too, when you buy, is you have to do a final buyer visit.
Yeah.
So to anyone who's never purchased a property, there are lots of clauses that agents would put in to the contract. So with an agreement of purchase and sale, there's schedules, and Schedule A is like my baby. That is where I put all of the clauses that I need to put in to protect you. One of which is that, you are entitled to up to 3 revisits to the property, because most of the time you see a property once for 30 minutes and then you buy it for like $1 million.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you have the right to go back, whether it's, you know, you want to do renos and you want to bring contractors to obtain quotes, or you need to take measurements for furniture, you want to show friends or family, whatever it is. And I always tell them, I'm like, if we have 3, you have 2 freebies, 1 is mine. And that is the final buyer visit, non-negotiable. We are doing it. I usually do like 3 days before closing. I know that you like it to be a little bit before that in case we run into issues.
3 days is the minimum that I usually like.
Yeah. I usually say 3 to 5.
Yeah. I usually say earlier in the week too.
Yes.
If you're going on the Friday and it's closing on the Monday, like, don't do that. Like, it's 3 business days.
Yeah.
The reason is, like, let's say you're going in and, like, I don't know, there's a hole in the ceiling, or like the fridge is completely busted, right? Or there's a leak. Like, you need to tell me. I need to tell the seller's lawyer. The seller's lawyer. You guys need to hash it out. Whole circle, right?
So, and to anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, another clause that I often include is a clause that states that all of the chattels and fixtures, so pretty much anything included with the purchase, will be in good or functioning order on closing. And so we do the final buyer visit to make sure that A, everything that we've agreed will stay is still there. B, everything that's supposed to leave is gone. And C, like, everything within the contract is fulfilled. So we go and we test all of the appliances and we make sure that all of the chattels and fixtures are working. And so it's not uncommon that, you know, we go and something's not working in the way that it was before, or, you know, there's like a washing machine that's broken. And very often I'll tell you, you'll tell the seller's lawyer, they'll either have it fixed or they'll reimburse you for the cost. Like, they'll give us a certain amount for the cost of the repair. And it's also very important because it gives you a picture into, for example, if it's a tenanted property, is the tenant still there? Has anything been packed away? Like, are we in the process of moving? Are there, like, so I did a final buyer visit not long ago and we found a leak in the utility room. So I just let the seller's agent know, and they had someone go in and fix it. They sent me proof, easy peasy, all done. I have never let a client not do a final buyer visit, and the only time I allowed the client couldn't make it, and they sent someone as a proxy for them, was the only time I've ever had an issue with the final buyer visit, because they then turned around and got very upset with me for the fact that they weren't there and that certain things weren't to their standards. And I was like, listen, you had the opportunity to come. You chose not to. I explained to you the importance. I can't do anything. But I know you have a really crazy story about foregoing a final buyer visit.
Yeah, I have a couple, but this is the one.
Tell us the craziest one.
This is the one that really got me mad, because it was a friend of mine who is also in the legal profession in some capacity. Now, he bought a place, and I was very insistent on, you know, using someone of the roster of people that he could pick that I knew, right? Obviously, I can't give direct referrals, and like it's a whole thing in the law society. But in essence, I'd prefer him to, as a first-time home buyer, be guided by people that I think would work very well with him.
Yeah. And that will like take them through the process and make sure they know what's going on.
And I specifically was hoping that he would use you in that way because like you're very stern. He needs like he needs a good kick in the ass here and there. And you know, he clearly didn't, and went with an agent.
So what happened?
Well, he went with an agent that his family has used for leases. Nothing wrong with that in and of itself. Go for it. Now, I went to go sign documents with him for his closing 2 days before 2 days before he was going to get his place. I went over all the stuff. Don't move in on the same day. Just when you get your keys, go in to make sure that everything's like in accordance with your last home visit.
Yeah.
And I said in accordance with your last home visit. And he looks at me. He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What do I mean?" And he replies, "What home visit are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, you're buying a home, are you not?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Are you going to visit said home before you buy?" And he's like, "Yeah, I looked at when we were looking at the place
before we offered.
Before we put the offer." I'm like, "So you didn't use any of the other home buyer visits that are in the contract that specifically say that?" And he's like, No. Why would I?" I'm like, "So you're given the option to look at the place that you're buying for, over a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
Don't you think that you'd want to go in a couple more times to, I don't know, just check out the place? Like, and I don't know, like lie on the floor, roll on it, like do snow angels. I don't give a shit.
But even if you don't care to do like the accessory visits, that's fine. But like at minimum, you have to do the final visit.
Yeah, just to go in and like you're living in this place. I don't understand. Like, and I looked at him. I'm like, "You are really, really dumb," right? And
which you would not say to any client, just only friends.
No, only friends, only friends. I just looked at him like he could tell. I don't think I directly said it was dumb, but I think my face just indicated sheer disappointment at this.
Oh no!
And then he looks at me. He's like, "Yeah, my agent said it wasn't necessary since we saw the place the one time." And I was like, at that point, I was like, he's an idiot. Like right then and there, I was like, he's an idiot. You're buying the place, like you should. From the time that you buy the place or put an offer to the time that you close, even if it's 3 days, a lot can happen in 3 days, right? Just because the place is empty and there's no owner in there, like let's say the seller's moved out, okay? It's completely empty. You don't know if like, there was like the neighbors were stomping up and down and, if it's a condo, like something fell or there's like a backed up leak or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like, "I'm sure it's going to be fine." I'm like, "I really hope so."
Or they've left lots of debris and such.
Yeah. Well, debris is a very good word for that because we closed, everything went fine, and he got the keys and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much." I'm like, "You're welcome, man. I'm glad everything worked out." Calls me back like 45 minutes later. He's like, "Yeah, so there's something wrong with the sink." I'm like, "What do you mean there's something wrong with the sink?" I'm like, "Can you be a bit more specific?" And he's like, "Yeah, it smells really bad." And I'm like, "Okay, like maybe there's like a
backed up. Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I'm pretty sure someone vomited it all and filled the sink up." And I'm like, "This is," at this point, I'm like, "You have to be joking me."
Yeah, this is not real life.
Right? And he sends me a photo of it. And
no.
Honestly, it was horrifying. It was like, I'm pretty sure it was vomit or whatever it was. It was just like a backup of just crap, just all over and flooding.
PSA, just don't throw up in your sink.
Or whatever. It could have just been like the trash from the pipes. I don't know what it was. But it was horrifying. And at this point, I'm like, this is the reason why you do
a final buyer visit.
A final buyer visit. Because even if it came like, you 3 days before, you did the final buyer visit 3 days before, you would have went, okay, at least you don't know how long it's been sitting there for now.
Oh my God.
So like on top of getting someone to fix it and clean it, you got to get a priest to like, like get everything, like the unholiness of that out. Like it's disgusting. And I don't understand. So when I spoke to the client, And I said, look, like, you know, your agent really should have done this. And the agent's reply was like, yeah, I just didn't think it was necessary to do a final buyer visit since he's already seen the place the one time.
That's so
which
crazy.
Blows my mind.
That's
and
so
that's
nuts.
exactly what you get, right?
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I feel like there's.
That image has haunted me still to this
That
day.
is my nightmare.
Believe me, he's lived it, really. But
yeah, that's awful. That's awful. I feel like another thing we talked about, like when appliances aren't working.
Yep.
And we've definitely we've seen clients be like, so can we just not close because of this? What is the answer to that, Chris?
No.
And
so I should premise this as a lawyer. Technically, no.
Technically. And if I recall correctly, and you can tell me if I didn't remember, because I've asked you about this before, and it's because it's like not seen as like a major enough issue that a court would
Correct.
rule that that's a valid reason to delay closing.
So yeah, let's remove the court part from it, because I think that this is one thing I want to like eventually separate people's expectations from, is that when they hear lawyer, not every lawyer ends up in court, and suing is just way more down the line, down the line of things. But I think that it's important to stress that chattels and fixtures, which are immovable and movable items, so chattels would be like your fridge,
your appliances,
things like that.
Fixtures like your furnace,
lights, up to a certain degree, mirrors, things like that, windows, right? Unless you are buying the property, and it is essential that a key characteristic of you buying that property is for that chattel or fixture, you can't not close.
Right.
So let's use the best way I could describe it is, if let's say I'm buying a place in the Bridle Path. Okay. And the reason why I'm buying this place is because there is a large, beautiful water fountain, like in the middle of the
foyer.
The foyer or something, right? I'm buying it specifically for that. I have to specifically put in the schedule, this is an essential term as to why I'm purchasing. This is a key point of the characteristic of why I'm buying this place, because it affects my use and my enjoyment of the property.
Right. So if said fountain is not working on closing,
or
then
they remove it,
then it's a problem.
Exactly.
I see. Interesting.
For the most part too, like if you're buying a place, and I remember you were saying this in one of the seminars, where if you like any of the appliances and fixtures and stuff like that, you have to specifically list the brand, the name of it in there, because technically someone can just replace it with a washer dryer.
So that's something that I do religiously with my offers when I'm working for a buyer, is like standard practice. Most people will just put like a fridge, stove, dishwasher. Sometimes I just see appliances. I'm like, guys, you can't, this is crazy. But I will itemize them, and I always start with as or existing as of whatever certain date.
Yep.
So that it's specifically the items that are in the property as of the date of the offer. And then I go in and, like, if they don't really care, if it's just like a basic stove, whatever, but say there's like a Wolf oven and a Sub-Zero fridge, I'm putting in Wolf oven, like Wolf 6-burner oven, like whatever, Sub-Zero, like we specify, because they're rarely, but could be cases where sellers will use the ambiguity in their favor, and they will swap an expensive oven with a cheaper oven. Or one story I've heard once was someone just put washer and dryer, and they swapped the clothes dryer with a hair dryer. Like they just left a hair dryer. So I specifically put clothes washer and clothes dryer, because it's clear this is what it is. And even sometimes still, like, my most viral video ever is a story about how my clients bought a house, and I think you were their lawyer. They bought a house, and the fireplace was missing on our final buyer visit.
Oh yeah.
You remember this story?
Yeah.
And it was an electric fireplace, so it's technically a chattel, not a fixture. But it was advertised in the listing as included. It was in the list of inclusions. It was in our agreement as an inclusion, and we go and it's missing. So I messaged the agent, and I'm like, hey, just wondering where the fireplace is. And the agent gets back to me and is like, well, it's not a fixture, so I told my clients to take it. And I was like, well, that's really silly of you, because it's in the agreement of purchase and sale as an inclusion. So your clients can't take it. It doesn't matter that it's not a fixture. And the agent was like, oh, well, what do you want me to do about it? And I was like, put it back.
I hate when they give you like, what do you want? I'm like,
do what is contractually your job.
A better way of being lazy. Like I hate when people are just lazy and they give a lazy excuse for being lazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That just shows that
like,
you're.
What do you want me to do about it? Put it back.
Yeah. It shows me that you're not only stupid, but you're lazy and unapologetic about being stupid and lazy.
Yeah.
Which bothers me more because that takes effort.
Mm-hmm.
See where.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, all of this, like we've talked about so many things, and there's like just an unlimited amount of more information that we could provide to help, you know, buyers and sellers know what their responsibilities are and what they need to do. But like, I think to kind of like wrap up, I mean, it is so critical that you ensure that your real estate agent and your lawyer are on the same page and communicating. That is like one of the best ways that you can protect yourself as a buyer or a seller. And then like to go one step further is, you know, making sure that you're choosing the right representation, because like in your friend's case, they worked with an agent who perhaps was not well versed in like the process for purchasing a property and didn't think to do this critical step.
Yeah.
And I just think like you have to really like, don't be afraid to interview. I typically, if someone asks me for a lawyer, and I think it's the same for you, is like giving a direct referral can be problematic, because if that direct referral ends up not working out, it comes back on you. So I'll always give like 3 names, and with you, I'll always preface with like, I work very closely with Chris very often, and so this would be my number 1 pick, but like here are some other people. Call everyone, see who's the best fit for you. And it's the same for me. Like whenever I have a client or a potential client be like, hey, just so you know, I'm interviewing other agents, I'm like, please do, because the last thing you want to do is decide before you've met anyone else and then end up unhappy. Like you are spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on a purchase, and you have a team of people that are going to be backing you. You need to make sure that it's the right team for you.
100%. And I also think that it's really important that a big part of what I think, you know, one of the reasons why we work so well together is that there's transparency beyond like the normal set, I think. And building a relationship of trust. Yep. Where a lot of people are very cost conscious. Like they're already spending a lot of money on buying a place.
Land transfer tax.
Yeah, land transfer taxes. You know, the running around, it's stressful. So cost is obviously a consideration. But I think that you kind of get what you pay for, right? And your time is your money as well. Yep. So when you're working with a team of people that have worked together in, you know, a collaborative capacity, it really helps in making your life a lot easier. Because let's say, for example, I'm not picking up my phone for whatever reason, or if I'm busy and I haven't been able to answer a question, or
the client will be like, hey, I've been trying to get in touch with Chris. Exactly. Can you just give him a call? And then I'll call you, and then you'll be like, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Please don't kill me.
That's actually happened, by the way.
I just you do the same thing, but I take my job of like protecting my clients very seriously, and I will go to war for them. That is hands down. And my approach is not for everyone. We both share a very client forward approach, which not everyone does. And like you said, you get what you pay for. If you want to save money and work with a discount agent or a flat fee lawyer, like by all means, you just need to understand that the services that you'll receive may not be the same. Yeah. But like, if you're working with either of us and something goes wrong, like you better believe that Chris and I are going to show up with stakes and be ready to fight.
I also think that it's a reasonableness thing too, because we're both people that are, I think, you know, correct me if I'm wrong in this, like very practical about certain things. So, you know, I tell clients about the appliances, right? I'm like, look, you're doing your final home buyer visit. Anya's fantastic with this, by the way. She actually told me a trick that when you're doing final home buyer visits, to bring a bag of popcorn to check if the microwave works, because sometimes it makes a cute little noise and it doesn't do anything.
Okay, but also I learned this, that you can't run a microwave with nothing in it because sometimes it'll spark. So if you don't have popcorn, I'll find like paper towel or toilet paper, and I'll wet it with cold water, and I'll put it in for 10 seconds to see if it warms up.
Yeah. And, you know, and that's the thing. All these appliances, by the way, I want to premise it, and it goes back to this, is that we're both reasonable in that they have to be in good working order.
Yeah.
Which means that they have to run and do their job. They don't have to turn, like, if the light doesn't turn on but the whole thing works, technically, like, that's not really anything you should,
Yeah, or if the stove is slower to preheat, but it preheats. Like, the point is that a stove is meant to, like, and again, another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't do is I not only, like, will run the stove to 375, but I let it run on for at least 10 minutes to make sure it can maintain the heat, because sometimes they'll reach heat and then they drop. So, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not expecting it to be brand new, but it needs to be able to do what it's supposed to do.
But I always tell clients that to get their expectations in a reasonable amount, because a lot of the times, especially first-time home buyers, they're referring to their friends or most of the time their family members that bought a place, like, 30, 40 years ago, and they're like, when we bought our place, like,
Uncle John,
yeah,
who knows everything about real estate, even though the last time he bought was in 1972.
He knows a contractor that is,
he knows a guy
that, he used to bowl with or something stupid like that. Like, it's just like, he's like hitting the wood floors, like, this is like veneer. It's nonsense, right? But, like, people want to experience things and hold on to the memory of what it was, however long ago. And the reality is, pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, the real estate market and how even transactions are done,
the entire process
completely in small little ways that impact a deal on a practical level. So it's really about that that expectation, setting that standard, because some agents and lawyers will just be very whimsical and say, oh yeah, it's fine, we got it covered, right? No problem. And then when something happens that's like, oh, the fridge doesn't work or something, they're like, oh, it's supposed to work. I'm like, yes, but you should give some more context to that, right?
Yeah.
When
sending
you're buying
a video
property,
or like being specific, whatever it is.
Yeah, like, I don't like to use this example as much, but when you're buying a property that's a resale, you're essentially buying a
used car,
gently used or lovingly lived in home, right?
Yeah. So, it's not brand new.
Exactly.
It's been lived in, it's been used. There will be wear and tear, and which, like, we don't even have time, but Ontario is a buyer beware province.
Yep.
So a lot of the onus falls on the buyer.
Yep.
And like, when I bought my house and I closed, the sellers took out all, like, whatever shelving they were keeping. They didn't patch any of the holes. Yep. What am I going to do? Cause a fuss about it? Like, there's only so much, like, you have to be reasonable and understand that unless you're, like, so specific and you're like, every single hole that's removed needs to be patched and painted with the matching wall color, and you put that in your contract, you can't expect that it's going to be perfect.
And the offer's accepted on those terms.
Exactly.
Like, good luck on that.
Yeah.
Like, even for my place, when I bought it, like, appliances were really nice. I was very silly and I didn't follow Anya's advice and check with the appliances. And they're all kind of integrated in the walls. And now I just have a lovely microwave that I store books in. So that's just something to be aware of. Also, there's certain appliances that, like, you must know this way more than I did, but, like, I didn't know that there were dryers that don't have that.
Yeah, ventless. Yeah.
Those are in my experience, terrible.
Yes, they are a solution if you don't have venting, but it vented is optimal.
I didn't know that my place had that when I
was ventless.
It was a ventless one.
Okay.
And I was wondering why it took about 6 hours to dry sheets and they would still come out really gross. And then I realized it was a ventless one. And in the instructions, it even said, like, be aware that it might not dry to the standard that you're comfortable with normally. And I was like, this is... So that's just a side thing, but,
Yeah, you have to, like, really, really look. And it's, like... It just boggles my mind how, like, laissez-faire some people will be, and it's not their fault. For the most part, it's because no one has taken the time to educate them on what they need to look out for, what are the key steps, what the process looks like. But some people are just, like, so lax about, like, such a massive purchase or sale. Yeah. And, like, that's why, we have to be really clear that we're doing our jobs and, like, making sure that they're educated on whose role is what, everything that we need to know, what the expectations of them are, so that the process can be smoother and less stressful for the client.
It's a tremendous amount of stress that a buyer especially buyers have to go through. The main reason for it is that they're not just running around looking for the realtor, right? Like on the realtor side, they're looking and running around with them, looking at different properties. And then they have to find financing, or they're finding financing ideally ahead of time. And then there's either speaking to a mortgage broker, or if they're going to different banks to look at the different, like, mortgage products. And then they have to find a lawyer. So if each professional doesn't kind of link up or communicate effectively, then it's even more complicated going forward. I don't know what your thoughts on this are, but like, it's interesting that you brought this up. But what do you think of having like integrated services where there's like a broker and like, a team of lawyers in-house and like it's part of one suite, like, it comes out of the commission or whatever. Now, obviously that removes choice.
I don't think that it
standardizes things.
It standardizes things, and it takes, like you said, it takes away the choice. And I think that, you should have the right to choose the professional that fits with you. And when you go to, this is even like if you go to a big law firm, like but thank you so much for coming and enlightening us on all things real estate law. And hopefully we will get to talk to you again. I think, like, kind of going back to what you said in the beginning, some lawyers don't like the client facing process. And I think it's really important that you find a professional that fits with you. And same thing, like some people, have really great relationships, lifelong relationships with someone at their bank, and that person will move hell and high water to get them a mortgage. They don't want to be stuck to a mortgage broker at a certain brokerage. And actually I got screwed by this once because there was a mortgage broker. It was like a brokerage for mortgages, but also like integrated with a real estate brokerage. And the clients lied to me, told me that they had never worked with another agent, had like given me this whole story. This was like the first time they've seen properties, blah, 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 blah. They've never signed anything. They've never offered on anything. And then 3 months after closing, I get a call from an agent saying, hey, I've been working with these guys for 2 years. And they then told the agent that I poached them, but like they had reached out to me. And the reason that this was discovered was because the mortgage broker was from the same brokerage, and they were all working together. Yeah. And listen, like, maybe having those services would be helpful, but I don't think like it being a full package would necessarily benefit the client.
I agree with you. I'm just curious because it's definitely something that has been proposed and floated. I know some small brokerages do this integrated service, but I find that it's a double-edged sword exactly for that reason.
Okay, well, I feel like we've talked about so many different things, and obviously there's a million more things we could talk about, but to save people's, time and energy and not wanting to watch us chit-chat for 5 hours, I think...
They don't? Oh.
I know, so crazy. I think maybe we will end it here.
Okay.
But thank you so much for coming and enlightening us on all things real estate law, and hopefully we will get to talk to you again.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.